you have any problem, just let us know in order to cut this maybe part. Before I begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Anna Tsekani, and I work at HIGGS as an assistant DG project manager. For those who might not be familiar with HIGGS, HIGGS stands for Higher Incubator, Giving Growth and Sustainability, and is a nonprofit organization that aims to support other civil society organizations by providing educational programs, capacity building opportunities, mentoring, networking, in order to help other organizations become more effective, sustainable, and impactful. Today, we will continue our journey through the guide to sustainability for youth organization that we begin in the webinar number 3. In this webinar, we will explore why stakeholders engagement matter, how organization can build meaningful partnership, how to design effective sustainability campaigns, and how practical tools such as stakeholders mapping can help organizations create a greater impact. Before we move into today's topic, I would like also to briefly introduce SustainYouth project. SustainYouth is a European-funded project aimed to build a more resilient, sustainable youth sector, and that is more capable of responding to today's environmental challenges. The project is implemented by diverse European partners from Greece, Romania, Estonia, Serbia, Italy, and France. The project aims to support youth organization in adapting more sustainable practices in their daily work, while at the same time empowering young people and local communities to contribute to more possible environmental and social change. One of the most important resources in the program is the guidebook, the Guide to Sustainability for Youth Organization. That will be the foundation of our webinar today. Here I have included the website. You can scan the QR code, and it will go to you to the website resources, where you can find also the self-assessment tools and the guide for youth organization. That will be the basis of our webinar. The guidebook includes practical tool, activities, recommendation, and examples that can help organizations strengthen their sustainability practices step by step. Feel free to scan the QR code and to visit the website either now, in order to have a better understanding of the next slides and the chapters that we will discuss today. And let's move into today's topic and discuss how sustainability becomes stronger when it is shared. Many organizations begin their sustainability journey internally. They reduce paper consumption, they improve waste management and practices, they encourage sustainability travel choices, and a lot of times they organize environmental, let's say, workshops and commitments. Of course, these actions may be important and positive actions, but a lot of the time, every sustainability journey usually starts with small, let's say, internal changes. However, while these actions are valuable, their impact often remain limited if they stay within the boundaries of the organization itself. This is where, let's say, the shift in perspective becomes more important. Sustainability is not about what happens inside our offices or our project or our activities, let's say, but it is about how we influence and engage the wider community around us. Youth organizations do not operate in isolation, but every day we interact with a wide range of stakeholders. We work with young people, with universities, with municipalities, with local businesses, NGOs, and public institutions. And each of these actors bring something different to the table. Some provide expertise, some provide resources, some provide access to networks and audiences, and others provide visibility, influence, or opportunities to collaborate. When sustainability becomes, let's say, a shared effort, um, these different strengths can come together to create much greater impact. So let us think more about a simple example. For example, imagine that a youth organization wants to reduce the use of single-use plastics during events and activities. If the organization acts alone, it may successfully encourage its own participants to bring reusable bottles or avoid disposable materials. But that is already, of course, a positive outcome. But imagine, let's say, what happens if the organization involves additional stakeholders and start to collaborate with them. Let's say for that the local school could integrate the topic into educational activities. The municipality could support awareness campaigns in public spaces. Local businesses could sponsor reusable materials for sustainable behaviors. Community groups could help spread the message to wider audiences, and suddenly the initiative is no longer reaching only a small group of participants, but it has the potential to influence hundreds or even thousands of people. This is what we mean when we talk about collective impact. Collective impact occurs when different organizations and stakeholders work together towards a shared objectives, combining their resources, their knowledge, and of course, their influence. In many cases, the combined effect of collaboration is far greater than the sum of individual effort. So for youth organization, this way of thinking is particularly important as we often play the role of facilitators and connectors within our communities. We bring people together, we create opportunities for participation, we build bridges between different actors and different groups of people. This means that our contribution to sustainability goes beyond implementing environmentally friendly practices. We can also inspire collaboration and encourage others to become part of the solution. But the most important is that the question um, um, changes. Instead of asking what can my organization do alone, we should shift and being asked what can we achieve together. And that shift in thinking is one of the most important steps in creating meaningful and lasting sustainability impact. Partnership sometimes bring several important benefits. First of all, they allow organizations to share resources. For many youth organizations, resources are often limited. We may have great ideas and motivated teams, but limiting funding, staff time, equipment, or access to facility is something that might be a problem for some organizations. Through partnership, organizations can combine their strengths and resources. For example, let's say that a municipality may provide a venue for an activity, a local business may contribute to materials or a sponsorship, and a youth organization may provide the expertise in youth engagement and facilitation. By working together, organizations can achieve outcomes that would be difficult to accomplish independently. Second, partnership bring new expertise and perspective. No organization has all the answers, so sustainability is a more complex topic that touches many different areas, including environmental protection, education, social inclusion, community development, and public policy. When we collaborate with different stakeholders, we can gain knowledge, expertise that can strengthen our initiatives. And partnership increase also credibility. When multiple organizations support the same initiative, it sends a stronger message to the community. People are often more likely to trust, to engage with an activity when they see that several organizations are working toward a common goal. Partnership are demonstrate commitment and also shared responsibility among partners, funders, and local stakeholders. Also, partnerships strengthen community ownership. This is perhaps, let's say, one of the most important benefits, as when stakeholders are actively involved in planning, implementing initiative, they begin to feel the sense of responsibility for the outcomes. The project no longer belongs to one organization, but instead it becomes a shared effort. This sense of ownership, let's say, increases the engagement, encourages long-term commitment, and improves the sustainability of results. When communities feel that they have contributed to creating a solution, they are much more likely to support and maintain it over time. Turning context into collaboration. Many organizations, of course, have large networks. We attend conferences, we participate in Erasmus Plus project, we join webinars and training. But sometimes having contacts is not the same as having partnership. The guide introduces the concept of turning contacts into collaboration. This begins with identify, first of all, relevant stakeholders who influence our work, who can support our objectives, who can benefit from our activities. And let's also pay attention to prioritization. One common mistake organizations make is trying to collaborate with everyone. In reality, it is often better to focus on 3 to 5 meaningful partnerships, as quality matters more than quantity. Once priorities are identified, organizations should define one concrete action, for example, a workshop, a campaign, a community activity, a training event, as the action should be more specific and realistic. And let's say that the responsibility should be assigned. Someone must maintain the communication and coordinate the relationship. And finally, organizations should review what worked well and what could be improved. This creates a circle of continuous partnership development. But actually, what makes a partnership a good partnership? As not all partnerships are equally valuable. Sometimes organizations focus on quantity rather than quality. And sustainable partnerships are built on trust, shared objectives, and mutual values. The slide compares less effective and more effective approaches. Many contacts versus strategic relationship, one-off activities versus long-term cooperation, unclear roles versus supported responsibilities, general intention versus concrete actions, and a strong partnership sometimes is not simply just an agreement that we have, but it is a relationship where both sides actively contribute toward a common goal. So ask yourself which of your current partnership are strategic, which partnership create real value for your organization and the community. Those are the relationship worth investing in. But many organizations want to raise awareness about sustainability issues, and awareness is certainly important, but people need to understand challenges such as climate change, waste management, sustainability consumption, or environmental possibility before they can take action. Awareness alone rarely changes the behavior. So think about how many times we have seen campaigns, posters, social media posts, or videos that shared useful information but did not necessarily lead to any real change in people's daily habits. This is why effective sustainability campaigns need to go beyond simply informing people. So instead of asking how many people saw our campaign, we should ask what behavior are we trying to influence. So this is a very important shift in perspective. The success of a campaign should not be measured only by visibility or reach. It should also be measured by whether people measured or are encouraged to take action. For example, do we want people to reduce waste? Do we want them to bring reusable waters or water bottles to events instead? Or, for example, do we want them to participate in local environmental initiatives or community cleanup activities? Do we want them to make more sustainable consumption choices? The more specific the desired behavior, the easier is to become a design of effective campaign. For example, a campaign with the message protect the environment, it's a very broad. Most people agree with the message, but they may not know exactly what action to take. So, on the other hand, a campaign encouraging participants to bring your reusable bottle to every event provides a clearer and more achievable action. People understand exactly what is expected from them. So, this is why communication should always be connected to actions. When planning a campaign, it can be helpful to ask yourself, what do we want people to know, and what do we want them to feel, and most importantly, what do we want people to do? So the final question is often the most important one. Successful campaigns do not simply create awareness, but they create opportunities for action. Another useful principle is to make sustainable behavior easy and accessible. People are much more likely to change their habits when the requested action is realistic and achievable. Small actions can often lead to bigger changes, and for example, encouraging participants to bring reusable bottle to one event may eventually influence their everyday habits. So, participating in a single community cleanup activity may also inspire someone to become more engaged in environmental issues in the future. As youth organizations, we have a particularly important role in this process. Young people are often enthusiastic and motivated to contribute to positive change. But our role as organization is not only to provide information, but also to create the opportunity for meaningful participation in actions. When people know exactly what they can do and what they feel that their actions make a difference, they are much more likely to engage and remain involved. So this is the goal of effective sustainability campaigns, transforming awareness into action and actions into long-term behavioral change. Moving to effective campaigns, now that we have, let's say, discussed the importance of focusing on behavioral change rather than awareness alone, the next question becomes what makes a sustainability campaign effective? The guide identifies several important ingredients that can help organization design campaigns that are more engaging, more relevant, and more impactful. Before launching any campaign, it is important to understand exactly what we want to achieve. Sometimes organizations start with a general idea, such as raising awareness about sustainability. While this is, of course, a positive intention, it is often too broad, and a lot of times people are different to um, identify themselves. So, a more effective objective might be encouraging participants to reduce waste during events, increasing the use of reusable water bottles, promoting sustainable travel choices. The clearer the objective, the easier it is to become a design activities or measure success. The second element is specific audiences. Not every message is suitable for everyone. Different groups have different interests, motivation, and needs. Young people, local authorities, community members may all respond different to the same message. This means that campaigns should be adapted to the audiences that we want to reach. When we understand our audiences, we can communicate in ways that we are that it's more relevant and meaningful to our work. We continue to consistent message. People are exposed most of the times to an enormous amount of information every day. So if our message is unclear and complicated, it is less likely to have an impact. Successful campaigns usually communicate one clear message that it is repeated consistently across different activities and communication channels. Simple and focused messages are often the most effective. And practical action. This is one of the most, let's say, important components of any campaign that we want to build. People should know exactly what they can do after engaging the campaign. If participants leave an event inspired but uncertain about what action to take, the opportunity for change may be lost. For example, asking participants to bring reusable bottles, participate in a cleanup activity, and reduce food waste provides a clear pathway for action. The easier the action, the more likely people are to participate. And last but not least, measurable outcome. It is important to understand whether our efforts are actually making a difference. This does not necessarily require complex evaluation system. Sometimes simple indicators can provide more valuable information. For example, how many participants joined an activity? How many reusable bottles were distributed or used? How many organizations become involved in a community initiative? Measuring results helps organizations understand what works, what could be improved, and how future campaigns can become even more effective. So, when these five elements come together, a clear, objective, a specific audience, a consistent message, a practical action, and a measurable outcome, campaigns move beyond the awareness and toward meaningful engagement. So the goal is not simply to inform people. The goal is to empower them to take action and become active contributors to sustainability within their communities. And inclusions, of course, matter. One of the most important principles highlighted in the guide is that sustainability should be accessible to everyone. When we talk about sustainability, we often focus on environmental actions, climate initiative, waste reduction, and sustainable life cycles. But, however, sustainability is not only about environment, it's also about people. And if certain groups of people are excluded from sustainability initiative, then our efforts cannot truly be considered as sustainable. Participation is not only always equal accessible. Sometimes young people face barriers that make it more difficult for them to engage in activities, in project, in campaigns, in decision-making processes. So it's very important, these barriers, to take many different forms and to notice them in order to overcome them. So for some young people, the challenge may be financial. Participation may involve transportation cost, activity fees, equipment, or other expenses that are difficult to be covered. So for others, transportation itself may be the main barrier. Young people living in rural areas or remote communities may have limited access to activities taking place in urban places. Language can also be a barrier. Young people from migrant backgrounds or those with different linguistic needs may also find it more difficult to access information or fully participate in activities. Also, accessibility, of course, it's a very important consideration. Young people with disabilities may face physical barriers, communication barriers, or limitation in accessing certain spaces and activities. We should think about digital also exclusion. Many sustainable initiatives rely heavily on online communication and social media. However, not all young people have equal access to technology and reliable digital skills. Finally, there is another bar that is sometimes less visible but equally important. Some young people simply do not feel that sustainability activities are relevant to them, so they may feel disconnected for environmental topics, believe that their contribution will not have a difference and impact, or feel that sustainability initiatives are designed for other groups rather than them. So, this is why inclusion cannot be left to chance, but must be intentionally. As youth organization, we need to actively think about who is participating or who is not. Before designing any activity, campaign, workshop, project, event, it is useful to ask ourselves who is currently participating and who is missing. Why might they not be involved? What barriers could be preventing participation? And also what support could we provide to make participation easier and more meaningful. Sometimes very small adjustments can make a significant change. Providing transportation, choose more accessible venues for everyone, offering materials in different languages, using different communication channels, all of these actions can help create more inclusive participation opportunities. Another also important point is that young people should not only be invited to participate in activities, they also should have the opportunity to shape them. Meaningful participation goes beyond attendance. So it involves co-creation and shared decision making. So when young people are involved in identifying needs, designing activities, and proposing a solution, they are much more likely to feel ownership in the process. And when people feel the ownership, they are more engaged, more motivated, and more committed to achieving a more long-term impact. Inclusion and participation therefore strengthen sustainability in two ways. First of all, they ensure that opportunities are accessible to a wider range of young people. And second, they help create initiatives that are more relevant and more effective to them. So, as we move forward with sustainability work, one of the most powerful questions we can continue asking is who is missing from the conversation? Because often the people who are not currently represented are the people who represent we need to hear the most. And stakeholders mapping canvas. We have spoken about the importance of collaboration, of partnership, and of course of inclusion. But the next question is how do we decide where to focus our efforts? And also, most people know that most organizations have a lot of stakeholders. Some are actively involved in our work, other influence our activities directly, some provide resources, and of course, some others help us reach new audiences. But some also may be important stakeholders, even though we have very limited interaction with them. So there is this is where the stakeholders mapping canvas becomes very useful. It is one of the most practical tools included in the guide because it helps organizations move from general networking to strategic engagement. Rather than trying to collaborate with everyone, the tool helps identify which relationships are most important and where we should invest our time and energy. This might include young people, universities, municipalities, local authorities, NGOs, or even local media. At this stage, it is important to think broadly and capture as many relevant stakeholders as possible. The second step is to assess our influence. In other words, how much influence does this stakeholder have over our work, our activities, in order to achieve these goals? Some stakeholders may have significant influence because they provide funding or policy support or decision-making power. Others may have less direct influence but still have play an important role within the community. Assess strength. How strong is our current relationship with these stakeholders? Do we communicate regularly with them? How we worked together before? And of course, is there trust or mutual understanding? Or is the relationship still limited and underdeveloped? This step is also particularly useful because it helps us identify opportunities for growth. Sometimes we discover that we have excellent relationship with stakeholders who have limited influence. We may also realize that some highly influential stakeholders have very weak relationship with our organization, and some desire greater attention. And step 4, apply an inclusion lens. This is something we discussed also in the previous slide. As we map stakeholders, we should ask ourselves whose voices are missing, which group of young people are underrepresented, and are there stakeholders who should be involved but are currently absent from our discussion and activities. This step helps us ensure that our engagement efforts are not only strategic but also inclusive. And last but not least, prioritization. Once we have mapped our stakeholders, we can begin identifying where to focus our effort. Not every stakeholder requires the same level of engagement. Some may regularly require communication and collaboration. Others may only need some updates or consultation, but the goal is to use our limited time and resources wisely. I would like to think also about your organization and for example, ask yourself who would you place in the category of high influence and strong relationship. And perhaps, for example, in a municipality, a local authority, a school network that could contribute significantly to your work. These are often relationships that represent the greatest opportunity for future development. So by identifying these gaps, organization can take a more proactive approach to partnership building. So instead of waiting for opportunities to appear, they can intentionally strengthen the relationship that are most likely to support the sustainability goals. Strategic stakeholder engagement is about making informed decisions. It helps organizations focus their efforts where they can create the greatest impact, build stronger partnership, and develop more sustainable and inclusive initiatives over time. And this is exactly why stakeholders mapping is such a valuable tool for youth organizations that want to move from good intentions to meaningful actions and to long-term impact. As we approach the end of today's webinar, I would like also to leave you with one final message. Throughout the guide and throughout all 4 webinars, we have explored many different aspects of sustainability. At first glance, it may seem a lot, but sometimes organizations feel overwhelmed when they think about sustainability. They may feel that there are too many things to do, too many areas to improve, too many expectations to meet. And this is why it is important to remember that sustainability is not a single action. It's not once a campaign or a workshop or an event. It is certainly not something that can be achieved overnight. Sustainability is a journey rather than a destination. What truly matters is not the number of activities or organization um, eh, that an organization implements, but whether sustainability becomes part of the way the organization thinks, plans, and operates. So, in other words, sustainability becomes meaningful when it becomes part of organizational culture. When sustainability becomes part of the organization culture, it starts influencing everyday decision. It influences how activities are designed, how resources are used, how partnerships are developed, and how young people are engaged. This transformation does not happen throughout one major initiative, but instead it happens through a series of small action over time. It requires habits. So and habits are the small action that becomes part of our everyday practice. It requires processes. Processes help ensure that sustainability does not depend on one enthusiastic staff member or a volunteer, but becomes embedded within the organization's system and ways of working. It also requires partnerships. As we discussed, meaningful collaboration allow organizations to extend their impact and contribute to broader community engagement. It also it requires review mechanisms. Organizations need opportunities to reflect on their processes, identify challenges, and celebrate achievements, and learn from experience. And perhaps the most important aspect, it requires continuous improvement. Sustainability is not about perfection, but as no organization is perfect, so every organization is at a different stage of each journey. What matters is the willingness to learn, to adapt, and continue improving. Sometimes organizations delay action because they feel they need the perfect plan before they begin. But sustainability rarely works in this way. Meaningful change often start with very small steps, a new policy, a new partnership, a new small campaign, a simple change in the behavior. So over time, these small actions create significant organizational change. And I think with that being said, we also finished with our today's webinar. Here I have included a QR code in order to evaluate the webinar if you would like. I hope we have a lot of people. I don't know if you can see it. Of course, the link for the evaluation will be sent in your emails, and also you can find all the information regarding the website and the guidebook on the SustainYouth.eu website. I don't know if we have any other questions from everyone. I will stop also. Stop the recording. Great. So, if we do not have any other question, I would like to thank you very much all for your participation today. I hope our webinar has provided you more practical ideas and useful tools that you can apply within your own organization. And see you in the next webinar.